This is an ABC News special. Kids in the Crossfire.
They have a gun, you have a gun. Shoot them before they shoot you.
Boom, 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 shot him. He's out. That's it.
A 7-year-old boy was caught in the crossfire while playing out.
That's all I got.
major trauma.
We're sorry about your kids dying, but everybody died.
The violence has to stop. Because I'm tired of our young brothers and sisters dying. It has to stop.
Live from our nation's capital and the Elliott Junior High School on 18th and Constitution Avenue Northeast. Here now, Peter Jennings.
Good morning, everybody. We're here this morning to talk about what it's like for kids to be growing up at a time when there is just so much more violence in their lives than there was, for example, in mine. We're here in the nation's capital because what's already familiar here is becoming increasingly familiar in the rest of the country. There were 13 shootings here in Washington, D.C. last night, most of them involving kids under 20, and 3 of them resulting in death. Just since last summer, 8 kids who go to this junior high school were shot somewhere in this neighborhood. In fact, kids are 2.5 times as likely to be involved in violence as are adults. On the subject of adults, by the way, if your parents are around this morning, this may be something they'd like to watch with you. I wonder if they know how easy it is for you kids to get guns, that you're twice as likely to be hurt by someone you know as someone you do not. And I guess I wonder how many people all across the country understand how many kids all across the country come and go to school every day afraid. So perhaps you'll all stay with us, because for the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to talk to some kids who live in the crossfire.
The 9X family of companies is pleased to sponsor this special event. We invite you to join in the conversation.
Kids in the Crossfire. Now live from our nation's capital and the Elliott Junior High School, Peter Jennings.
From the gym at Elliott Junior High, and we're very grateful to the people who had us this morning. None of us are nervous at all about this morning, are we? Hardly. Anyway, what we're going to try to do in the next 90 minutes is to just share with you at home things about this problem in the country. And we've invited kids and a few adults who will get introduced a little later on, including, I must say, the Attorney General of the United States is with us this morning. We've invited kids from across the country to come and share some of their stories with us, because many of them have been caught in the crossfire, and also to try to listen to their opinions about what they think might be done to curb what the Surgeon General of the United States said on Monday was a public health epidemic in the country. Maybe as many of you kids don't read the newspaper or watch television, but all over the country now, all you have to do is pick up a newspaper or turn on the television set, and you know this is becoming a much bigger problem. I haven't told anybody here what we're going to do, but we've made some film pieces about some of them, so a lot of these kids here know why they're here. But I want to try asking a couple of very broad questions of the group as a whole. How many of you kids in this audience today have ever been exposed to violence? Put up your hands. So I'd guess we're looking at about 70% of the kids in this audience have been exposed to violence. How many of you, put up your hands again, go to bed at night to the sound of gunfire in your neighborhoods? Again, a pretty healthy percentage of the kids. How many have you ever been to a funeral? How many of you have ever been to a funeral of someone you know who died as a result of violence? Patricia Mayo. Now, I know something about you, Patricia, but before we tell your story, tell me about the funeral.
The funeral I went to was for my homegirl. Just blood shot her in the head for no reason. She shot her in the head just because her boyfriend told her to.
This was where and when?
Tomorrow would be 2 years ago. Where? My house, in front of my house.
Do you remember what you thought at the time of the funeral?
Yeah, I wanted to get him back. I wanted to shoot her. Well, I wanted to kill her.
So revenge is a issue that kids deal with. Who else has been to a funeral of someone they know? Francisco Gallardo. Where do you come from, Francisco? Denver, Colorado. You went to a funeral. Tell me about it.
Was hard for me. It's the first funeral I ever went to sober. One of my homeboys that was stabbed 3 times, and a lot of times when I was a gang member, I thought about death a lot, and everything I described in my funeral was at this homeboy's funeral. The black dickies, everything, 40s in his casket, showing no respect to his parents. I mean, we just took over that family's funeral, and I remember being sober and not being able to hide behind the alcohol and trying to be hard and not give in to the feelings. I started to cry and I couldn't stop, and it was just overwhelming pain.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people at home thought that you were not ordinary kids. In fact, some of you have had experiences which to me and to a lot of other adults are pretty horrifying. But put up your hands just once more for me, and then I'll stop doing this. How many of you think of yourselves as being average kids? Just sort of kids like all the other kids you know. So you all think you're average kids. And does that mean, help me here, Val, you help me. You're 17, 16?
I'm 16.
You're 16? Does that mean to you that an average kid, where you come from, where?
I come from Streamwood, Illinois.
You come from Illinois. Does that mean that an average kid where you come from is going to be exposed to some violence at some time in his teenage years?
Yeah, there's a good chance, I think, as years go on. Yeah.
Did you ever think it would be this way?
No, actually not.
What about you, Jared? Where do you come from?
I come from D.C.
Yeah? Did you ever see any violence in your life?
No.
No?
No, not any shootings.
Do you hear about it ever?
Yeah. My dad, he reads the paper every morning, and he reads all sorts of things that are violent, and he's a political science teacher, so he reads a lot about what's going on with the country.
Do you think are you ever afraid?
Not really where I live, because in the northwest area there isn't a lot of crime.
Okay, in the northwest part of Washington, D.C., it is certainly true in Washington, D.C., that the northwest section of this, our nation's capital, is a lot less vulnerable to violence than where we are over here in the eastern district. But one of the things we want to try to help you understand this morning is that violence is not just confined to the inner cities. This is not what some people call a ghetto problem. This is a problem increasing all over the country. And in order to try to get a handle on that, we asked all of our affiliate stations around the country to pick a day, it was a couple of Fridays ago, and just go out and record in their town or their city those incidents where kids' lives and violence intersected. One day. This is some of what we found. Take a look.
In a city which has witnessed an explosion of violence in recent months, the discovery of a handgun in a school locker seems almost unremarkable. But this incident took place in an elementary school, and the 2 students involved are 10 and 12 years old.
Palm Springs High School reopened today after closing for a day and a half following the on-campus fights between students on Wednesday. The campus was calm, but tension remains. 2 students were arrested today for carrying.
Attorneys for Damian Doris and Jacob Gonzalez, accused of murdering Elizabeth Alvarez at an ATM machine, are challenging the youth's confession, saying they aren't old enough to understand giving up their rights to silence.
And a 15-year-old student is in serious condition at Grady Hospital tonight. He was shot today at Prim High School in southeast Atlanta.
The McCrae family of Rochester killed over the weekend. Each one shot in the head, officials say, by the only surviving family member, 15-year-old Jerry McCrae, their son and brother.
Have you ever been picked up for doing anything bad?
Yeah, auto theft, arson, curfew, assault.
Now, a friend of yours was actually caught on campus this week carrying a gun, right?
Yeah. She was just really upset about this guy, and she decided she was going to come kill his girlfriend so she could have him.
She carried a loaded gun on campus?
Yeah.
The way things are going now, yep.
You think he'll use a weapon?
I think I have to.
But understand, this is the real world out here, okay? And I'm gonna pray for my child. I pray for my kid. I know that I say, God bless you when he walk out the door, because I don't know if he's coming back.
My name means something to me. You know what I'm saying? You write your name down, and this brother right here, you know what I'm saying? He turned around and he put his name over mine. I know who did it. I got to get him. So therefore, I got to pull out my 9 and run and get this man.
That's how
you know what I'm saying? That's how it works.
In Dallas tonight, 2 teens are in critical condition, another in serious, and an infant cut by flying glass after a series of drive-by shootings.
What is it like living in LA or Hollywood?
It's kind of scary because you think about like the stuff that goes on in South Central LA and stuff, and people don't realize that it goes on in like North Hollywood and Studio City.
You do kind of get worried that the wrong person's going to come up to you and pick a fight or something. It happens all the time, and what are you going to say? You don't know what they have in their pocket. They could have a gun, or they just might hit you right there, and there's nothing you can really do.
Things happen every day, and you never know. No one has the name on a bullet.
Now, before this morning is over, we're going to try to find out from these kids, and as I said, some adults, including the Attorney General, what they think can be done about this. But I think it's important, at least I hope it's important at the beginning, to talk a little bit about, to be what we call anecdotal, to tell stories so that we all get a full understanding of who can get involved in this. I'd like you to meet a fairly new, you want to hold this? Fairly new friend of ours. His name is Calvin Webb. He comes from Philadelphia. If you're going to hold it, you have to put it right up to your mouth. You want to tell me about you? What happened to you one day?
I got shot.
Tell me how. What happened? What was the day like? What were you doing at the time?
I was playing on my porch.
Just playing?
Yes.
Tell me the whole story.
I was leaning on my gate, talking to my sister, and I screamed on my leg.
And do you know who shot you?
No.
Just the bullet came out of nowhere?
Yes.
Did you see who did it?
No.
What happened afterwards?
My sister pulled me in the house.
And where did you get shot?
In my back.
Is it better now?
Yes.
You got new clothes too, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, where'd you give your uncle give them to you today? Did your uncle give you your new clothes?
Yes.
Your sister's right up here, Taisha. Taisha, would you pick up the story and tell us a little more about just what happened to Calvin?
Me and my brother and my friend was sitting on a porch, and there's 2 men. They was arguing, and one man invited another man out to have a shootout, It was like in the afternoon time where a lot of kids was playing around it. So one man, he pulled out a gun and started shooting. And they were shooting at each other.
Had you ever seen people shoot at each other before in your neighborhood? This was the first time.
And me and my friend was on the porch. We didn't really know the bullet hit him because we thought it was firecrackers at first. And then, right, my brother was like on the gate. He was like, my legs, because if you get shot in the back, his legs gonna get weaker. He can't walk, so.
He's better now, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you here today and glad to have you help us understand that little kids, Calvin size, how old are you now, 6 or 7?
7.
You're 7. You were 6 when you were shot. Yeah. That kids like this all across the country are vulnerable. And this is something we've got to stop. We'll be back in just a minute.
1 in 5 high school students carry a weapon to school. Kids in the Crossfire will continue in a moment.
Like all these different robbers and thieves or ghosts, even though I know there aren't any. I think there aren't. Like when somebody knocks on the door and you don't know who it is, and they keep on banging, and you're home alone.
Drugs on the city streets and how people depend on them.
And like with crime, I mean, everyone might be wearing bulletproof vests. I mean, little babies wearing bulletproof vests.
Abusive people, and you're afraid that if you go out with the wrong guy, then he could do something. Or if you get married, then your husband will beat you.
When I go to the park, there's a lot of drug dealers hanging out there, and they're looking at you. You never know if they might come up to you and say something, and it'd shoot you for nothing.
Well, when my family fights, gets mad at each other, and they ignore each other.
If you're in some kind of trouble, you could just go to your parents and talk to them. Because they teach you things that you don't know yet.
So when they grow up, they won't have to learn everything when it's too late.
Sometimes children don't know how to obey, and if a parent doesn't tell them what to do, they will never do it. They don't talk, and they just spank them. They don't know what they're spanking them for, because they never know what because they never know what they did wrong. They never tell them what they did wrong.
Because if they didn't talk to you, then you wouldn't know what's going on, and you'd just be very confused.
If parents don't talk to their children, pretty soon their children are not going to start talking to them.
Kids in the Crossfire continues. Once again, here's Peter Jennings.
I just want to ask one more general question, all of you, because I hope folks at home now get the sense that most of these kids here, and they're from all across the country, have been exposed to violence. I was just asking Calvin if he was afraid to play outside now. He says he's not afraid anymore, but you were for a while afraid to play outside, weren't you, Calvin?
Yeah.
And lots of kids all over the country are afraid to do that. How many of you kids, if you wanted to get your hands on a weapon, how many of you would be able to do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about more than a dozen of the kids here would know how to get their hands on a weapon. We talked at the beginning of the program about what it was like getting to and from school and whether or not kids felt safe coming to and from school. This next little piece of video in which one of our students participated with us is a reminder to us that this can happen in school. This is something that happened in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. The young woman involved is a woman named Kelly Rogers, and listen to this story.
I never thought it happened to Dartmouth. I never thought that anybody in my school that I knew would actually do something like that. And somebody that was close to me would just die. All of a sudden, 2 students came in, and one of them had a bat, and it looked like one of the students punched Jason in the stomach. And Jason started backing up, grabbing his stomach, saying, ah, ah, and then everybody was looking. Somebody took off their shirt and put it on Jason's stomach just try to stop the bleeding. He was just looking up at me and he was grabbing my sweatshirt, asked to say help me, but I couldn't do nothing. He died, and just shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I just miss him being my friend. Just being there. The school was like empty without him. Just something missing inside of me.
Kelly Rogers is with us today. Kelly, thank you for sharing this with us. It's important. What effect has this had in your school?
We've had buzzers put up in the front door. We've had cameras put in the office. We're getting IDs. We have security guards all over the school now. It's really changed.
So it was never like this before?
No, it wasn't.
No, so your school, in a sense, has become something of an armed camp.
Yeah.
What effect has it had emotionally on the kids in the class?
People are still, really emotionally about it. There's just something missing in everybody. And I don't think that the school will ever go back to the way it was.
Okay. How many of you know what the Attorney General of the United States does? Can anybody tell me what the Attorney General of the United States does? Not too many. Ed, over there, can you tell me what?
Yeah, pretty sure the Attorney General is the kind of like the heavy for the law.
Heavy for the what?
For like the government, like.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad description when you think about it. Anyway, we're very pleased this morning to have Janet Reno with us, who is the Attorney General of the United States, the heavy for the government. Have you heard it described that way before, Ms. Reno?
No, that's a new one.
Would you tell these kids in fairly clear language what it is you do for the government?
I am the person responsible for the prosecution of crimes that are in violation of federal law. My office supervises the Bureau of Prisons, Immigration and Naturalization, the Civil Rights Division, responsible for enforcing civil rights laws, Civil Division, representing the government of the United States. I am, in effect, the lawyer for the government, for the people.
And would it be also fair to call you the senior law enforcement official in the United States?
That's often a description.
What do you think about what you've heard so far this morning?
One of the points I want to make to you is thank you for letting young people speak out. Too often we talk between ourselves and we don't listen to young people. For 15 years, I went to a different public school on the average of once a week in Miami, where I was prosecutor, to learn from them. 3 years ago, we saw youth violence becoming one of the terrible problems we faced. Young people have so much to say and they want answers, and I think we've got to provide them.
Do you think that there are answers for these kids here today?
I think there are some clear answers. I think it's terribly important that we focus on the issue of punishment, that there is no excuse for hurting another person, that no matter where you come from, what has happened to you in your life, you've got to understand that it is totally unacceptable to hurt other people. But with punishment, there have also got to be programs that help youngsters who commit a violent act come back to the community after they have been punished, back to the community with a chance of success. So we need punishment that means what it says. As I've traveled through the country, so many kids say to me, how come they can get away with it? We've got to make sure that people understand they can't get away with it and that there are enough programs. Congress is about to pass a provision for boot camps that I think will be extraordinarily important as part of the crime bill.
Stop right there for a second. How many of you know what boot camp is? Oh, you do? For those of us who don't, what is it?
Boot camps can take different forms, and it's important that communities develop those boot camps, but they're programs for youngsters which provide for, sometimes they're out in the countryside. They provide opportunities for children to learn discipline, order, to perform community service. What we'd like to see is for them also to include components of job training. It makes no sense to pick up a kid, punish them, and then dump them back into the community without addressing the issues that caused the problem in the first place.
Let me stop you there for just 1 second. George, sitting right behind you. George, you have just been released from detention, haven't you?
Yes.
Do you think there's anything the government can do to help you? Think about it, okay? We'll be back in a few minutes. And those of the rest of you who have questions you might want to ask the Attorney General, think about them. Nice to see what you have to say as well. We'll be back in just a minute.
Kids in the Crossfire will continue in a moment.
I think it'll be
worse because they're not. They say they're trying to help, but from what I've seen, they haven't been doing that much.
I hope that the job market opens up and that there's going to be a place for more people than there is now.
It wouldn't be such a great place. It would, there would be a lot of bad gas and that kind of stuff.
I'm pretty much sure that they're gonna bring out the electrical car. It doesn't use gas, it uses electricity.
A lot of the endangered species that are on the list now should be, hopefully, will be taken off the list, like the African elephant.
Then we'll start a whole new life, and then everything will be perfect. Not really perfect, but it will be better than how it is now, with everyone working together.
It can kill some animals, and it can kill some people if the air gets really bad. If everybody would help clean up the earth and help save the animals and things like that.
Gun control, weapons control, really. All across the country, kids tell us they're afraid to go to and from school, which means that all across the country, kids are carrying weapons to defend themselves, which means hundreds of thousands of weapons going to and from school every day. And all the metal detectors aside, kids know that some of the weapons get through, and very often you find them in the locker. Do you know that in 2 cities recently, when we went and just asked kids at random whether they were carrying a weapon, 1/3 of them said they were? Look at what they showed us.
It's either me getting shot or the other person getting shot. And if I have to use it, I'm gonna use it.
If somebody's gonna play me, I'm gonna hit them. I ain't gonna hesitate. So that's why I carry weapons, on me to protect myself.
It's basically just a folding knife. You can use it for other uses than just a knife. You can use it as a fist pack to make your punches hurt more. But otherwise, it just basically folds out. I'm not really sure what kind of a knife it is. There's people out there who also carry knives, and if they have a knife and I don't, I could wind up dead.
It's more of an effective weapon than you think it would be. If they're messing with me, I'll whip them with it.
It makes me feel safe. You know, everybody's strapped these days. You gotta do what you gotta do. Nobody's using their hands no more.
You have to approach them with something. You have to be ready for the moment. I carry this blade. This is a better blade because it's firm. You have other ones that when you push up, the blade comes out, but they break easily.
Well, I carry a weapon for self-defense because a lot of the girls out here nowadays, they be fighting for a lot of things, stupid things, and they be willing to stab any girl for nothing. So I feel like I could do anything in the world and there ain't nobody gonna touch me.
When we come back, what to do about all the weapons.
Kids in the Crossfire will continue after this from our ABC stations.
Tonight, will George's Kids Club be a TKO?
They need a structure.
Yeah, like a jail cell.
Luckily, he's
bigger and badder.
And bolder.
George Foreman in the premiere of George, tonight at 8, 7 Central.
Kids in the Crossfire continues. Once again, Peter Jennings.
Just before we left you there, we were talking about George Trossi, who's going to talk to the Attorney General of the United States. I think some other kids have got some questions as well. But here's a little more about George.
It feels pretty bad, you know, when you see that gate closed and there goes your freedom right there. All that you had is all gone, you know. I was high at the time and I was kind of aggravated. I was just walking around and I got tired of walking, so I pulled a gun out on somebody and I got the car. I feel bad for the person that I did it to because I wouldn't want nobody to go out and rob my grandmother, my mom, or my father, you know, so I can understand how she feels. It's level. my dad, he always told me, you know, if I do the crime, I gotta do the time, you know. So, but I didn't listen to him. And, you know, that's me. I was being hard-headed. There ain't a day that goes by that nobody in this place will think about their family and friends, you know, because it's pretty hard. You ain't got nothing here.
George, do you think of yourself as a violent person?
Nah, not that violent.
No. Why'd you carry a gun in the first place?
Protection.
For protection?
Yes.
Protection from whom?
From everybody. You don't know who got what.
I asked you if you think the government, the Attorney General, could do anything for you. What do you think?
They could. They can provide us with more, like, recreation facilities and stuff to help us and to teach us better than what some places do, you know. And, like, have more programs in school and stuff, and build more parks and stuff for kids to go to, and so they won't be hanging out on the street corners selling drugs and everything.
Do you think government could do more for you in terms of recreation?
Yes.
Maybe in education?
Yes.
Realistic, Ms. Reno?
I think it's very realistic. I think what we've got to understand is most of the young people in America are not violent. They're like George. They care. They are adrift. And if we work together when I talk to students across the country, they tell me what they need most are programs afternoons and in the evenings that are relevant to them, that mean something to them, and they need somebody to talk to them and understand how difficult it is to grow up. What we need to do is balance the punishment and prevention. We can't just send George back to the community without developing programs that can keep him out of trouble again, because he's not bad. He can get started and get off to a fresh future, but the community and the federal government have got to work together in developing programs that can do this.
Does that make you feel any better, George?
Yes, sir.
Well, it make me feel better when I produce it.
Has anybody else, who else around here has carried a weapon? I think you have, Francisco, eh?
Yeah.
What would it take you to put down your weapon?
What it took me to put my weapon down was basically I had to redefine some things for me, because I thought respect is what I wanted, you know. In the gang, they teach you, people disrespect you, you act in a violent way to earn power and control. I learned another way was to respect people, and respect is being treated like you want to be treated and treating other people the same way, and that isn't with the gun. Because I've been on both sides of the barrel and I didn't like the feeling, so.
Let me go up here to Fong Vang, who comes from St. Paul in Minnesota. Fong, right? You carry a weapon on a regular basis?
No.
No, but you have?
Nah.
No. Never used a weapon?
No.
You're a member of a gang in St. Paul, I think, am I right?
Yeah.
Why'd you join the gang in the first place?
Just to have some friends and protection.
Just because you didn't have friends at home, or what?
No, it's just that you gotta have some friends if you go to a big school and stuff. So whenever you get into a fight or something, they'll be there to help you out.
Do you think it's a fairly normal thing? How many of you think it's a fairly normal thing to join a gang these days? Or a crew, I think they call them here in Washington. Letitia, you think it's a fairly normal thing to be a member of a gang?
Yes.
Yeah. What are the advantages?
There are a lot of advantages. Like if somebody try to jump on you, the gang will help you. And like somebody pull a gun out on you, maybe the gang will do something to them.
Do you think that kids very often belong to gangs in order to go out and get into trouble, or to prevent trouble, to stay out of trouble?
To prevent both.
Both, eh? What about you, Patricia? Patricia Mayo, you're a member of a gang?
I'm a member of a gang in Fort Worth, and I mainly joined the gang for protection so I could protect my family against other gangs.
And I think, John Alvarez, you are a member of a gang?
Yeah.
Why did you join it?
Well, it's most of the time it's because it's like a family thing, you know. All you guys do is just go and drink out and things like that, you know, and have fun. I mean, there could be trouble. I mean, there's always trouble, and you can prevent it too, you know. It's all up to that person.
Take a brief look here at a piece of videotape which we prepared earlier, which in fact is John and some of his fellow gang members.
This is the S for the South. The X is to separate the South from the Los, and the L is for the Los. South LA, you know. It's like a symbol showing what neighborhood this is, like our territory, you know, showing that this is our neighborhood. There's like at least 200 people in my gang right now. It's like you're joining a family, and everybody cares for everybody. Whenever you're walking around here, you might end up getting shot. You beat up somebody or whatever, you know, shoot somebody, you stab somebody, that's really what
gang war is all about, just going back and forth at each other. There was a drive-by right here in my neighborhood, and they shot one of my homeboys. He's in the hospital right now. I mean, it hurts you, It really touches you inside. If he dies, I mean, I would feel real pissed off. I get kind of nervous, I might be the one that end up getting shot or stabbed or something.
He's brain dead. He's not dead yet. We'll do something about it. You'll probably hear about it on the news.
Someday there'll be a bullet with your name on it. You wouldn't be expecting it. It'll hit you and just be lying there.
So John, when we recorded that several days ago, and you guys were talking about retaliation, did you ever retaliate?
No, right now we're just worried about homeboy making it through, coming back. Hopefully we don't lose him. That's the only thing we're worried about right now.
I have to tell you, I think there are probably people out there who don't know what homeboy means. What's it mean?
Oh, it's like it's like a friend. It's just like a slang word for friend.
From your neighborhood, basically,
yeah.
or
anywhere. People everywhere say that word.
Would you really go and retaliate for your friend being hurt?
It all depends, It would all depend if you really know that person or if you don't. I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing because I don't want to end up getting messed up or anything, But it all depends if you really love that person or not. If you just met him, I mean, you're gonna care about him. But if you do know him for a long time, then you're gonna care for him.
And you'd go and retaliate on his behalf?
I would.
Now, there are two people I want to talk to you at the moment. The first is Deborah Prothro-Stith, who is the former Commissioner of Health for Massachusetts, who came down here on her daughter's birthday, for which we're very grateful that you took the time to come down today and you'll celebrate later. What's right or wrong with John's attitude? I should say, by the way, that you're the former Commissioner of Public Health. You've written a book called Deadly Consequences, which I think is fascinating and I think all parents should read, which is how we're losing a generation of teenagers to violence. What's right or wrong about his attitude? Can you two chat for a minute?
Well, I think while it's understandable at one level, the question has to be raised, when would it end? I mean, if you retaliate on his behalf, then what would happen? And then what would happen? And then what would happen? I don't know, when would it end?
It seems like it would never end. I mean, because either if I don't go out and do it, somebody else will, I mean, whichever way, it's never gonna end like that. If I don't do it, somebody else out there will do it.
Do you ever think that there's another way to respond?
Oh, I mean, me personally, I'm not really involved in this anymore, because I'm trying to get out of it. I mean, most of the time it's people that, just got jumped in or whatever, just barely learning things about it, and that's why they all get hyped up and go and do something stupid, that's why.
I guess I wonder if there are other ways to really show him that you care about him.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there is. I mean, you can go, and visit him and stuff like that, show that you really care, go over there and try to, talk to his family and stuff like that. I mean, because, it doesn't really work going out there and hurting somebody else, because same thing's going to come back. You never know. You might end up getting shot yourself.
Yeah. Or some other member of his family.
Yeah.
I mean, in the
Dr.
long
Stiff?
run, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. In the long run, what?
No, I was going to say, in the long run, it seems that it is important to show that you care about him. Figuring out how to do that so you really help him, not hurt yourself or hurt him, is really the struggle.
Yeah, I mean, right now, ain't nobody going out there to do retaliation or nothing right now. Right now, we're just worried for him to make it through, That's the only thing we're really worried about.
John, there's somebody else I think I'd like to have say something to you. I'm not sure she really wants to. I didn't ask her. This is Martha Banks, who comes from Denver in Colorado. And Mrs. Banks, what would you say to John?
I would say revenge is not right, because you cannot bring the person back. All you do is go back around and just hurt people over and over and hurt people's parents, sisters, brothers, aunts. It's not right at all. Revenge, you should let God handle revenge, not you.
That make any sense to you, John?
Couldn't really hear.
Mrs. Banks says she thought it wasn't good for you to seek revenge, that God could have revenge, as she put it, but it wasn't up to you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not the one who's gonna go back there. I mean, I'm out of this stuff. I mean, I ain't gonna go there and involve myself in something that, I'm not even really with right now. So, I mean, I'm not putting myself in that position because I've already been through it.
Okay. We care about Mrs. Banks particularly because she came here from Denver straight from her son's funeral. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us the circumstances of your son's death and what you think the community has learned from it?
Halloween night, the whole family went out trick-or-treating. I was a block away from my son and my other daughters, another son. I was with my 3-year-old right around the corner. They was on Claremont. I was on Claremont. They was on Cherry. I was at the man's house. He was giving my 3-year-old daughter some candy. I heard 2 shots. And when I turned around to walk away from the man's house, all I said to myself was, I hope that's not none of my children. But it was. My 18-year-old son got shot down for what? For nothing. Am I angry? Sure, I'm angry. But I'm not that angry to go seek revenge on the kids that did it, because it's not up to me. I want justice to be, how should I say that? I want the kids to pay for what they did to my son, because he was a good son. He was a good child. He's a straight-A student, had a scholarship, had a rap tape out. He was going places, and his life was stolen, all because of someone wanting to have power. A 13, 14-year-old want to have power. It's not about power. It's about love and understanding and sitting down and talking to your parents and tell them how you feel on the inside. My son would come home and talk to me and tell me how his day went, or when it was good or when it wasn't. And I put my arms around him and tell him I love him. I can't do that no more because he's gone.
Mrs. Banks, could I ask the kids, I hope you know how grateful we are that you've come and how tough it was for you to come at this time. I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't feel pain about your son. But you said something really interesting about power. How many of you kids think that power is a big issue for teenagers? Kayla, what do you mean?
Well, if somebody say you in a gang or something and you want to show off in front of your friends, you want to say, oh, I'm like that, or say that I got the power, that I could go shoot him, or I could do that to him. Or if, say, somebody got a better shirt, some better shoes than you, then you be like, oh, well, you be jealous or something. So you be like, oh, I got had the power, so you gonna shoot him, or you gonna start something with him.
Okay, up at the back there. Carrie, what do you think?
I think that some people have a reason to carry a gun. Like, if you're carrying a gun and it's like, I'm doing this for protection, but some people get out of hand and just start shooting it unpurposely. And that's what usually causes the murders. And then when you shoot somebody, you know, you might feel good that you did it, but you don't know that you hurt somebody else.
Eric, what do you think?
I mean, the only thing they're doing it for is power. They already have everything else, and they probably just do it either for power or just to get revenge.
Do you feel as a kid you got to have power?
No, I don't really care. I think if people don't take me for what I am, then they're not my friends or anything.
Cherise.
I believe a lot of it comes from where it's not only power, but they want respect from their peers and the people around them, or in their neighborhood and community and school. And they feel that the only way for them to make it is to get that respect. And half the time, it's not respect. They really don't like you, but they're intimidated by the person. And that's what it's really about.
And one more, just before we go away here. Janelle, you've been sitting there. What do you think about this?
Well, I think a lot of what people do, it's because they can. You say you bring a gun to school for protection, but is there going to be any consequence if you bring it to school and you don't end up needing it? Are you going to get caught, and is there going to be any reaction? You were saying that you don't think that there should be revenge, but there should be a consequence to the actions, and I think that's a big problem, that people don't realize what they're doing, what's going to happen to them.
Okay, we're going to come back in a moment and talk about this phenomenon of guns and kids. When I was a kid, there were a lot of weapons people used if they wanted to beat up on somebody. There was nothing like the Terminator of today, the gun. We'll be back in just a moment.
Kids in the crossfire. More children and teens aged 10 to 19 are killed by firearms than by all natural diseases combined. This ABC News special will continue in a moment.
In a word, I'd have to say ignorance. I'd have to say that people aren't aware of different cultures, to think if it's a different culture, then it's not right.
I think there's racism because people think that they're better than other people because of their skin, and they just feel that way, and that goes on to their children.
They think we was made for somebody to own us.
maybe they just had something bad happen to them, and they might haven't got over it yet, and maybe that's why people don't get along so well.
I just think that because you're another color, they think that you're nothing.
Racism makes me feel angry because the way people hurt other people, and like they hurt them for it's a stupid cause because of the color of their skin or their religion. When it happened to me, I felt really hurt because I didn't expect that someone would do it to me. And when they did, it was like sort of like a shock. I was like, I couldn't believe it, and I was like so hurt by it. For them to call me that is wrong, to be calling someone a name by the color of their skin.
Kids in the Crossfire continues. Once again, Peter Jennings.
Welcome back. I think we're very conscious that you can only accomplish very little in the course of 90 minutes, but we'll move along and try now. We're joined by Patrick Hines now, who's one of the chief agents with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Because I don't think people realize what kind of access kids really do have to weapons, though in a lot of the national surveys we looked at, 36% of kids said they could get their hands on guns if they wanted to. Tell us something about these and kids.
Yes. Peter, the important thing to realize is that ATF estimates there are already 230 million firearms in the United States. In 1992 alone, 1.5 million handguns were manufactured, and almost another million were imported into the country. So under the rule of supply and demand, the supply is there. And behind these weapons here, we have sad stories, because these are the type guns that are representative, the type guns that are being taken from juveniles.
Why do kids carry guns? Do they carry them for offensive reasons, for defensive reasons?
We've talked with, ATF works very closely with state and locals, and we try and trace every gun under a new initiative from our director in ATF. We want to know where they're coming from. And juveniles tell the state and locals they carry them for basically 3 reasons. Number 1, it's a curiosity. They want to bring a gun into school and say, look what I have. Number 2, they use it for protection, because they know other people out there are the aggressors. And that's the third one, the aggressors, the nasty ones, the ones that carry the guns to do harm.
So do these particular firearms represent different things about kids, do you think?
Unfortunately, these firearms here, they have a sad story amongst them, because these are representative.
Give me an example.
The firearm here, .22 caliber pistol. It was a 13-year-old that brought this into the 7th grade. He wanted to show his friends. Unfortunately, there was a round. He pulled the trigger and he killed himself at his desk. A shotgun over here was stolen.
Yeah, this does not look like a defensive weapon to me at all.
A weapon like this was stolen in a house burglary. In the theft, then the person cut it off, and only a month ago, sawed-off shotgun was used in a shootout at a bus stop in the Midwest.
By a teenager?
By a teenager. And recently we had the pool shooting in Washington, D.C. We know that a high-powered...
It's a semi-automatic pistol?
Yes, a semi-automatic, carries 17 rounds. We know that a 9mm pistol just like this was used to shoot into a pool on a retaliatory, a response to someone they didn't like.
So how many, do you have any idea how many weapons you've taken off kids in the last year? And let me then turn to the Attorney General and say, do you look at these things with horror? Do you think you can do anything about it? How many have you taken off kids in the last year?
We work very closely with Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police.
Right.
From January to September, 177 firearms have been taken from juveniles. And we don't think that's indicative of D.C. We think that's a national problem.
Sounds kind of hopeless, Attorney General.
Nothing is hopeless. I think, Peter, you've got to take from these young people a lot of answers. First of all, one of the first steps is to get the Brady Bill passed so we make sure that guns are in the hands of people that belong to have them. We've got to get a ban on assault weapons. We've got to get laws passed that keep guns out of the hands of teenagers and children, except when they're properly supervised under extraordinary
You don't really
circumstances.
think a ban on weapons though is going to keep guns out of the hands of teenagers, do you?
No, because you've already got the guns on the streets. One young lady said when a kid comes to school and brings a gun, he's got to know that there's a consequence. But children can be taught to resolve their conflicts, a lot of children, without guns, without knives, without fists. And we can do so much more in terms of conflict resolution programs in the school, in terms of programs that teach kids that they can have power and self-respect through community groups that don't involve gangs, don't involve guns. There's no simple answer to the problem of youth violence, but there are answers if we balance punishment and prevention and make punishment mean what it says.
Now, this is a very big question. It's the last one I'm going to ask you for a moment. But in the last year, general crime statistics have gone down in the adult population. They're going up in the juvenile population. That must horrify you.
It's horrified me for the last 4 years because I've said that drugs, teenage pregnancy, dropouts, youth gangs, the youth violence we see are a symptom of a deeper problem in society. I think the most critical problem since World War II, and that is that too often we have forgotten and neglected our children in the last 30 years. And as much as we have to punish them for horrible crimes, we've also got to develop programs that give them a chance to grow as strong, constructive human beings. John says, a moment ago, said he was trying to get out of a gang. We've got to provide him alternatives to help him get out. There are so many wonderful young people in this country that want to belong to something that gives them self-respect. They don't want violence.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll see you, Agent. Let me go back and talk to the kids for a second and see whether or not this means. How many of you could hear the Attorney General and the agent from the Bureau over here? Does it make, Raphael, does it make sense to you what they're talking about?
It seems like teenagers are using too many weapons, and mostly every time they get a weapon, they always try to shoot somebody.
But it seems reasonable for you that you know kids who use weapons or at least carry weapons?
In our school, I don't know nobody that uses a weapon.
Okay, what about you, Bobby?
There's no real violence around me or anything like that, but I don't know. I think I can understand, why kids want to have it. I mean, sometimes there's problems in their family or things like that, and they feel they need to go out and shoot somebody or hurt somebody to get the respect that they want.
Dante, what do you think, Dante Johnson? What do you think about this? He says maybe kids have trouble in their families and they get weapons. Do you make a connection there at all?
Well, they might have like family members like in gangs, and the person, one of them can go to school and get in trouble with one of their friends, and they go home and get one of their weapons from their cousin or something and bring it to school.
Where's Terrence, by the way? Terrence? Terrence, what do you think about this? Because you had a brother, your brother was shot?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
He was killed.
He was killed.
Yeah. About 4 years ago, when my brother was coming home, one of his friends, well, so-called friends, came down the 3rd 8th Street Bridge. And
This is here in this neighborhood you're talking about, right?
Down by the 3rd 8th Street Bridge. And he put a gun on my brother's back. And he told my brother to get in the car. And my brother got in the car, and he pulled my brother's girlfriend back and once he got in the car, he let her go. So my cousin Juice lived right around the corner. And so she went there and got him, but he ain't know where they went. And then they beat my brother real bad, bruised him all up. And then they pushed him out of the car and they shot him up.
Terrence, you just heard the Attorney General and the Special Agent talking about guns and getting rid of guns. Does any of that make sense to you? You got some other ideas?
Not really. I say getting rid of guns, it don't really solve nothing. Because if you get rid of guns, it ain't like they can't come back with knives or something. But I say, don't get rid of the guns, but I'm saying, make sure you got more protection. Get all the drug dealers off the street. It ain't no use bringing in a National Guard or none of that. Just make sure, give the children a good message to not to go out there and sell drugs and stuff and get into that wrong behavior and go on the wrong path and everything. That's all you gotta do is pray to the Lord and ask him to help you and everything, and he'll put you back where you wanna be.
Well, I think you've used one important word in there. I think you used a lot of important words, but there's one important word I think we'd like to come back and talk about. Am I right, Dr. Stith? You want to talk about message? Because I'd like to find out where you kids get these important messages in your lives from to do whatever you do. So let's come back in a minute and talk about the media. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about television. Let's talk about who you admire. We'll be right back.
Live from our nation's capital, Kids in the Crossfire will continue in a moment.
Not to say that men can't do the job, but a woman would have more sensitivity in dealing with certain issues than a male would.
I think it's a good idea that women start getting more into politics.
They've had their turn in history also where they've been treated very badly. They know how it is, and they're going to do a lot about it.
I'd rather have a woman president because she knows what it's like, and she knows how rough it is out in the streets and stuff.
And then we wouldn't have football. We might tear down the tech field and all those fields so they could just build stuff like JCPenney's up there.
I just think it would be terrific. I think that we could handle all the crime, and I think it would be a lot better.
Well, since I'm a male chauvinist, I think that it would be terrible to have a woman president. They cry too much, they're too moody. Everything is fine the way it is.
There was a politician woman, right? And she was very feminine. Then she liked the army to be nice and neat and everything. But you know.
We women have more respect for each other than, males do. And we would just talk about another country, wouldn't just take out our guns and shoot them. Just talk about them, sit down, have some tea and just talk about them.
Some and some aren't. That's the way I feel about it.
I'm usually not listening to very much because my sister talks a lot.
Sometimes.
I know my sister does, even though she can't understand me.
There's so many challenges for kids. Here's another one. In every school, they're trying to teach about leadership, and they're trying to teach about role models. Here in Northeast Washington, they're teaching about Frederick Douglass, who fought against racism and slavery all his life. But there is so much competition. Look at what kids are seeing as role models on television every day.
Friday night. Dun, 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 dun.
Hello.
Hello. Goodbye. We got a war zone down here.
Can we have one night where there ain't no fight, nobody gets shot?
Violence and the media, when Kids in the Crossfire continues after this from our ABC stations.
Tonight, Ducky Doug is back.
I am now a college man. He's growing up. Mommy, I'm out of underwear.
See the show the press calls just naturally funny. The season premiere of Where I Live, tonight after George.
Kids in the Crossfire continues. Live from the Elliott Junior High School in our nation's capital. Once again, Peter Jennings.
I'm just looking at some of the statistics here. It says the average 18-year-old has seen 20,000 simulated murders by the time he or she is 18. And a lot of people think that television and or movies, but television particularly, they say these days, is responsible for the violence. Patrick, right? Paul, my apologies. What do you think about violence on television or in the movies? What effect does it have?
Oh, well, I think it's bad because the people who watch it, they see that when that solves problems, and then they go out into the real world and see that on TV that it solved the actor's problem, so they can go be violent and it'll solve their problems.
What do you think, Jared, sitting right next to Paul?
Well, I think people just
put it on there to make money. They don't really care what happens to the kids or teenagers that are getting killed out there because of what they see on TV.
Okay, what do you think, Corey?
I think that it ain't nothing but, what, just a show, you know? They go out and do it.
Just a show?
Just,
Doesn't affect you, think, in any way?
it doesn't affect me, because I know it ain't real, you know?
Okay, Nanette?
Well, I think it has its both sides, because the bad part about it is the kids will go out and do it, but the good part about it is it teaches you how to prevent yourself and teach you how to handle those problems.
Okay, Letitia, what do you think?
I think the same thing he thinks. It's not real.
Not real. Does everybody think it's not real? Way at the back. Alicia, what do you think?
I feel as though they need to realize that's fantasy. That's acting. They need to. This is reality. What happened? You just can't come out here and shoot somebody and go home or whatever. In the movies, videos, whatever. That's fantasy life. That's acting. They get paid for that. It's fantasy.
What do you think, George?
Some of that, the movies and stuff, you know, some of that stuff, that's really what happens and stuff. Some of them send out messages. You know, it might be violent and all in the movie, but they send out messages in a good point, but some of them don't. But the movies, you know, some of that stuff that happens, it's really what goes on in everyday life. You know, they say it's fantasy, but that's how some people live, you know.
Okay, way up in the back there. Teddy Bempong?
Some violent movies tell you what really happens in some part of the country.
Samantha, what do you think?
I think that if you're stupid enough to think that it's real and go out and do it yourself, then you're just plain ignorant. That is on TV. That's what their script says.
Janelle.
I think that the problem is that it is real. It does happen, and it shouldn't happen. However, most people, or at least kids, don't use guns that way. I'm on a school rifle team, and there's a huge number of kids across the country. I think it's around 850,000 that are on programs like Boy Scouts, and they do it in a safe manner, and that's how it should be. But on TV, you very rarely see guns portrayed that way. You simply see them on the bad parts.
Sorry, what do you think, Chuck Norris? Welcome, Chuck Norris.
Well, the thing is,
nobody on TV is more violent than you are, that's for sure.
Well, I think the kids will disagree with that. You know, again, violence for violence sake, I'm totally against. Justice fighting against injustice is, I think, is a concept that I've tried to follow in my film career and in my TV career, is not to advocate violence, but violence is out there, and how do we deal with it? That's the key thing here. But I don't want to spend this valuable time trying to defend my movies, because the key thing here, what George and Terrence were talking about, is activities in school. That's the key thing right now that we've got to face, a positive approach. That's what my Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation in Houston is all about. I work with 800 kids this age here, teaching them the martial arts to help raise their self-esteem, because power doesn't have to be with a gun. High self-esteem is power. And if you can raise these kids' self-esteem through whatever medium, it helped me. Martial arts changed my life. I started the martial arts when I was a teenager, very insecure kid, and non-athletic, and I became a world karate champion. Now, I did take karate. I became a world karate champion for 6 years in a row, and then from a very insecure kid, I got into the acting field. And the martial arts is what helped me rise above this through the positive philosophy that the martial arts has.
Could you ever imagine carrying a gun in real life for any reason whatsoever?
No. Again, I don't need it. I don't have to. I don't feel that insecurity in myself that I have to carry a gun to feel important or feel big and powerful. My power comes from my own self, and that's from all these years of training in the martial arts. But I think these kids here, will agree with me that my movies don't construe violence to go out in the street. I don't think my movies would tell them to go out and commit violence. It's a man who is pushed into a position that he has to deal with, and that's what many of them have to do today. Is if you're walking down the street and you're attacked by a gang, you want to have the ability to deal with it. Well, if you don't have the ability physically, then you've got to have a gun. But hopefully, through that strength of the martial arts or whatever you have, then they'll leave you alone anyway. In Kick Drugs Out of America, we have 800 kids, and that's our gang. That's our gang.
Thomasina Portis, who works with kids in the high schools and in private schools in the District of Columbia here and on the streets, doesn't it also make sense to teach kids to walk away from violence, if possible?
Yes, it does. I do think that a major part of our problem is that we've not done enough teaching. We have done an awful lot of showing in television and in acting out things that people don't really clearly understand why it's being done. So what has become the norm around what children do, their everyday behavior is a behavior around violence, because that's all they know. We have not stopped. We have not come back to teach children clearly that there are right and wrong ways to deal with things. There's just and unjust ways to deal with things. We just let them, well, actually, there is no discipline here. We don't have any discipline set up for them. We don't listen to children. They know what the answers are.
Stop for just a second. How many kids here think that adults don't listen to them? How many kids think they have the answers to some of these violent problems in life? How many of you think that the television and the movies and what actually glamorize violence? Quite a lot of hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing maybe to look at here to get your opinion on as well, and I realize we may be moving a little too quickly. Take a look at this little piece of video from MC Light.
He's a rude boy, a ragamuff, ready to bag another brother that he ranks not rough enough. Cause if it ain't rough, it ain't right. And if he ain't right, well then he's all wrong for the light. I love my roughneck and ain't nothing going down or going up if my roughneck ain't in town. Gotta watch out, gotta get a roughneck. Gotta watch out, gotta get a roughneck. Gotta watch out, gotta get a...
Now I have to confess, MC, that I don't understand half of what you say.
Okay.
That's because I'm old, right? You all understand what she was singing about?
Yes.
You did. Thanks a lot. One of the lines I got, you done insulted me and I got to kick your ass right now. Is that a good message?
What?
Am I right? One of the lines in there, you done insulted me and I got to kick your ass right now. Or is that another one of yours?
No.
Is that another one of yours?
No.
Is that another one of yours?
No.
Oh, come on.
It's not.
You're
done insulted.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Are there any words in any of your rap lyrics which you think are violent that you wish now you hadn't done?
Ooh. No, I give out very good messages through my music, and I make an effort. As a matter of fact, that particular video, we went back and forth through editing because there was one part where this guy actually had a gun and he was going like this.
Right.
And each time I told my people at the record label, I need that shot out of there. And, well, I mean, it's just quick and it's quickety split and they'll never notice it. Oh, yes, they will. I need that shot out of the video.
Anybody got a question for MC or for Chuck? Anybody want to say anything about, yeah, Samantha?
Well, this is to Chuck Norris. Did you really like it in your movies when you would jump up and kick him in the face? Did you get a thrill out of that?
No. Again, like everyone's saying, this is a movie. And I'm a person who's dealing against whatever violence there is out there. And I'm retaliating against violence, really. If you see my movies, a lot of time I play police officers. Out of my 21 movies, 11 of them are police officer type roles. And it's a man who's having to deal with violence in the street. And rather than resorting to a gun, I resort to my martial arts ability. And not condoning that, not saying that, but it is out there. We can't hide our head in the sand and say violence isn't out there. And we can't do that because you're too smart for that.
Dr. Stith is biting her tongue here.
I'm having a very hard time listening to this because from their first cartoon through the latest superhero movie, and I don't care if it's a police officer, we lie to our children. We make them think violence is funny. We make them think that it solves problems. And the truth about violence is that it creates more problems. Even if you show the power for the moment, you have to worry about the revenge. And even as a country, we won the Gulf War decisively, but we still have the problem. We have to stop lying, and we have to create some movies where we solve problems without violence, because that's how most of us try to solve problems.
The media, watch the
MC,
news.
what do you got to say about this?
I just feel like it all goes back to the home, whether that mother and that father are ready to have children. And then at that point, they can dedicate the time to their children, teach them as they go along, and not just when the cartoons are on say, ooh, I can go do this and he can watch a cartoon. and not even care what your child is watching at that point because you're dying for a moment of time for yourself. I think it all goes back to the home where you can explain that, honey, this is a movie. Chuck Norris isn't really kicking someone in the face. This is really a stunt.
All right, hang on for a sec. Kwang Nguyen, you wanted to say something to MC?
I was wondering if,
You can say whatever you like.
if MC, like, I was wondering if you were born in a violent street.
Neighborhood?
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I don't think there's too many different places where there isn't any violence. I can say to date that about maybe 30% of the people that I went to school with have been shot or have been killed or are in jail. So I would say that it was definitely violent, yeah.
We're going to continue this discussion on this subject when we come back.
Probably Jim Abbott would be really major hero in my life because he's a one-arm pitcher and he made it all the way to the big leagues.
Leonardo da Vinci and Tom Edison.
My mom, because she does stuff for us. And when I lose something, she'll find it for me. And I was getting chased one day and she yelled them away and then they left.
I look up to Keith Haring for his work with AIDS and his artwork.
Sometimes I don't always tell her, but I'm really thankful because my mom's really great.
To me, everything my father is, I want to be. And he's like, to me, he's number one. He comes first before anything. Me and my father don't get along once in a while, but he's somebody I really love deeply inside.
Parents should talk to their kids because you don't want your kid to grow up being ignorant.
And they have to be able to talk to us and know who we are and just know what we're really going through at school and know the things we like and the things we're feeling, or else there's no relation. We don't know each other.
If my parents listen to me, which they do when I have to talk, it makes me feel that they care about me and they love me.
The parent is probably the closest role model to the child. And if the parent lives up to his responsibility, then, the child has a better chance to succeed.
A lot of the problems that the teens have today would be solved a lot easier if teens could feel that they could communicate with their parents.
When you communicate with your kids, that helps them out a lot. Let you know that let them know that you care about them.
Kids in the Crossfire continues. Once again, here's Peter Jennings.
MC Light and I have a little hassle here because I maintain that you done insulted me and I got to kick your ass right now is from one of your songs.
Those are definitely not the words.
Close?
But
Oh, come on.
We'll see what it is. It's the song called I Go On. It's the next single.
Right.
And it says, if you want to be involved with me, you have to be strong enough to know that hitting a woman is wrong. Because if not, we can handle the problem.
Oh, I see. So it's woman striking
back. Yeah, so you forgot
back.
all of the lyrics
I'm sorry.
above it.
Okay. Now, in the break here, I asked if anybody had anything to say in response to what Dr. Stith said about that we aren't giving kids any positive images, and that we teach them about violence all the time, and all sorts of hands went up. Troy.
I wanted to say something because I see her grinning and stuff when people are like Chuck Norris and MC Light talking, but all she's doing is blaming it on everybody else and not blaming, nobody commits murders but the people that do it themselves. She's blaming the movies and stuff. I don't hear her saying that much.
Okay. Nanette.
Does your daughter watch cartoons? Because, you're saying that cartoons do have an effect on children, but, it's just for fun.
Okay. Kayla?
When she was saying to put the positive messages in the movies and stuff, but in this society, that's what people look forward to seeing when they go to the movies. You put a movie out, they got a positive image and everything. It might be a handful of them, but nobody gonna want to go pay their $3.50 or $4 to go to the movies, and that's why people put violence in the movies, because they know people gonna go to the movies and they gonna get money.
Do you think something's wrong with that?
I know, but see, it's not like one person could change all that. It's the whole world.
Well, I think we can change. I think the reason we go to see the movies is because we've learned that we want to see them. We learn that it's funny. We learn that it's entertaining. That's what cartoons teach you. When the laugh, you laugh when the roadrunner gets hit on the head. And it keeps going. And actually, it doesn't have to be that way.
Kelly. Sorry, Doctor.
That's all right.
I think it depends on what kind of person you are. Because me, myself, I'll watch violent movies, but I know the difference between acting and real life. I know that if I'm going to watch a cartoon, I'm going to see them, the roadrunner, get hit over the head, but I'm not going to go out and hit somebody over with a brick. I know that it's fake, and I think the parents of the little ones, I think they should scan their TV, and if they don't think, or they don't like the cartoon their kids watching, they don't let them watch it, because the younger they are, the more impressive they're going to be.
More parental responsibility, you're saying, eh, Kelly? Turn the TV off and don't let your kid watch 4 or 5 hours a day?
And we'll have the society that we have now. That's what we depend on now, parental responsibility. And the problem is the television and the movies and the music, it's overwhelming. It's very difficult for parents. You can turn it off, but not always. We've got to have movie responsibility, producer responsibility, writer responsibility. People who are making money off of the lies have to have some responsibility for
Somebody
it.
behind you's got their hand up. Nessa.
I think it's up to the parents to be responsible and say to their children if this movie is good for them or not. And like most parents just go and say, well, go ahead and watch it because they're just like sleepy and they go.
Okay, one more
They don't
comment on
really
this
care.
here from Mia. Sorry, Mia.
I just like to comment on what Kelly said because I believe that it is true that most teenagers and children that are my age know when it's fake and know when it's not real. But when the little children, they don't know that. Their parents don't, maybe their parents don't even tell them whether it's real or if it's not real because cartoons right now have a great effect on children that are younger, the ages of 4 and 5. Because I remember seeing a girl who was imitating an umbrella as a machine gun. And I was amazed just by seeing how young she was to have been doing this. And I said, where did you get that from? She said, oh, well, I saw it on a cartoon. And I just think that her parents at home maybe haven't been teaching her,
Okay. Well, you kind of set us on the right path now because we've only got about 10 or 12 minutes left. And when we come back, why don't we try to talk? We've talked all about the conflict now. We've talked about the shooting, we've talked about the beating, we talked about the gangs. Let's spend the last few minutes talking about whether we can resolve some of these conflicts. We'll be right back.
I heard some stories about when he was dating my mom and how my uncles, I got a big uncles. They used to beat him up all the time. And, if that was me, I couldn't have it, I'd be out of there. But, he sticks to his stuff. He was cool, Now, the whole family loves my dad. My dad is cool. He's my hero. That's why I like him. Love him.
I'd like to end child abuse because I think that future generations are really our hope.
We could stop paying for guns and arms and defense, and we could put it towards useful things like education and food.
Instead of riding in the cars or buses, you could walk somewhere or ride your bike.
To change the world, okay, you need a really firm education in order to do a lot of things that you want to do. And so for me, I think education is like the key to everything. And if you have education, you can do anything that you want.
I would change the recession because it affects so many people, and it affects them greatly. The rich, the poor, there's so many homeless people.
I'm glad we're in Somalia, and we should have did something a long time ago, but we need to deal with our Somalian problem here in the United States.
Well, I would, try to eliminate all racism.
And stop the gun shooting and all the gangs.
I'll make more job opportunities for the homeless.
And I'll try to stop pollution and have a better life so people can breathe fresh air. To put more police on every corner, because everywhere you go, there's a crime. And I don't want it to be like that.
When there's a fight in the playground, a conflict manager helps them solve the conflict. Some people just start yelling at each other, so me and a partner of mine go and talk to them. We ask them questions, how they feel, what happened, and see if it works out for them. You guys feel happy with what you said? You want to be friends and he say sorry to you? Like that? Okay, shake hands, you guys. Congratulations, all right? See you guys later. Let's go. There could be lots of yelling and some teachers just doesn't have the time to help them. Look, we're conflict managers. What's the doing my job? You have to ask them if they want to solve their conflict. And if they don't want to solve their conflict, then the manager just walks away. Look, we're not gonna get you in trouble or anything. Forget it, I can't solve this. We can't solve this, sorry, because they don't want to come over here. Can't do anything about it.
She keep on messing with me when I was playing with my friends and my cousin. I just wanted to talk to her, and then she came up to me and pushed me.
I like the job because I like to help people. I like to help people solve their problems.
All right, so you'll say sorry, okay? Sorry. Okay.
Thank you. I'm just helping them so they could be friends and not argue anymore.
This is Jorge Narvaez. He's 10 years old. He comes from Oakland, California. Really tough job you have.
Yeah.
You sticking with it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In about 5,000 schools around the country now, people have conflict management actually on their agendas at the school. Does it make sense at your school?
Yes.
Yeah. How many other kids in the school? What do you think of this, Francisco?
Well, I'm trained too in conflict
Oh,
mediation.
are you really?
And I think they're doing it more in Denver schools, and I was really excited to hear that this little homeboy is trying it in his school, because it kind of validates what we're doing and the skills that were given to me, and to see it on that level, it makes a lot more sense.
Did the kids give you respect in the schoolyard, Jorge?
That depends if they want to solve their conflict, but if they don't, sometimes they don't like to show respect. They scream at us and they tell us that we can't help them, but we could help them. That's unless they want to solve the conflict.
Now, Troy Macbeth, who's 15 and comes from Falls Church. Troy, you were talking just a moment about TV. I've got a note here that says you like to fight. You told one of our producers you like to fight. Would you pay any attention to a conflict manager?
No, not really.
Really? Why not?
Because it's none of his business. It's my business.
Really? Really? Even if you hurt other kids?
Well, I don't like to fight as in a sport. I like to fight for the sport. I box.
Oh, you box. You're talking about boxing in a ring. You're not talking about uncontrolled violence.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I start fights, but I try not to.
Okay. How many of you kids think conflict management works in your school, that this is a sensible thing? What do you think, Patricia?
I think what he's doing is a good thing, but we need him in every school around. I mean, where I'm from, which is Fort Worth, Texas, in the middle school that I went to, they actually have police officers there.
Vanessa.
I'm a peer mediator, and the kids that come, we help them solve the problem, but not that many kids come because I think one reason is because, like, I'm a 6th grader, and I don't think that another 6th grader would be wanting me to, like, help them solve the problem because I'm just as old as them.
There's a lot of peer pressure on you, right? A lot of pressure from other kids to behave like other kids all the time. What do you think, Teddy?
Well, I'm a peer mediator, too. And I think it really works because kids would really like to talk with their friends instead of talking with a principal or something, because then they'll really get scared and think they're going to get detention or something. But if there's peer mediation at your school, then they won't be too scared to talk about their problems.
Terrence, back up here.
I think we should have conflict mediators, but they need to be careful because they know if they just in junior high, where I go to school at, I ain't saying no names, but in some schools, if you be a mediator, you can get hurt because if you see two people fighting in the hallway and you try and break it up, they're gonna wind up trying to think you try and jump in a fight and that you try and make them stop fighting because since you want to help them, they're gonna think you try and jump in a fight to help one of your friends. Since you see your friend fighting, so they're gonna try to beat you up.
Devadius.
Okay, well, basically, what I want to talk about, that seems like it's a good idea, to help. I think if we have the conflict manager in mostly all the schools, that will help reduce some of the violence.
So you kids seem to be at least telling me. Yes, Bobby?
Well, with what Terrence said about kids who won't pay attention to the conflict manager or whoever, I think that goes back to the home where the parents have to teach their children a good set of values and that they need to respect other people if they want people to respect them.
Okay, so the message I'm getting from you kids is that conflict management works, but it has to start in the home. Is that right? All right, let's come back and have a few final thoughts about that in just a second.
Crossfire will continue in a moment.
A woman is just like your mom, so they might make you clean your room more.
Yes, some women are smart, and no, they can't like stop things if there's a big bunch of people.
Yeah. Girls can do the same thing that boys can do.
I think it has to do with ignorance. You make fun of something that's different because you weren't taught it. It seems different to you. I think it's because people prejudge, and that's where prejudice comes from.
And we have such a mix of cultures all put together in one place, and it's so hard to learn how to interact with each other and with ourselves. And everyone's really busy blaming things on other people.
I think some people are different and they might be scared of someone different, but basically we're all alike.
To think that we're about to enter the 21st century and we still have all of this stuff hanging over us, and you would think that that was stuff from the past, like the 16th century, the 17th century. People didn't know any better.
I think people shouldn't be, fighting just because somebody's a different color, because we all are God's children.
I've been given about 2 minutes, which isn't very long, but I want to just go quickly around. I'm going to have to ask for very short answers, Kari. You hopeful about anything you hear today?
Yeah, I really think that some things that we were saying today could help people to understand that we should stop violence in the society.
Okay, David, what do you think? David Brummer, you think you learned anything today?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody out there to realize that this problem could be the downfall of our society, and that we really have to address it. And it starts, I think, people make a good point when they say it starts at home. And we have to start examining what message we're saying to our children.
Okay, what about you, John Alvarez?
Well, I think that, if you really want to change, it's within yourself. People can encourage you and, push you, but, it's all on yourself if you want to change,
Eric Holderman.
Well, I think a lot of good points have been brought out in this show, and that hopefully the kids out there have learned a lot, because I know I have.
Fong, you belong to a gang in St. Paul, right? This make you think you might want to get out of that gang and find another way?
Well, I'm out of it already. I've been out for like a year now.
Oh, you have. Okay. You think you're encouraged by what you see out there, or do you think it's still pretty depressing?
Still depressing.
How about you, Val Heckerman?
Well, it's good to see what we have here, because we have a lot of people here who care and who want to help out our situation.
Latesha, what do you think, love? Latesha's in a wheelchair because somebody shot her when you were just sitting there. What do you think?
I think that the people here probably got a message, but the people on the street, some of them probably got the message, but the others did.
Jimmy, last word to you. Do you think people out there are going to learn something from this or not?
Yeah.
Jimmy was shot the same way, but he's coming back, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay. We have a lot of people we want to thank around here. Glynis Powell, who's the principal at this school, has been terrific to us and let us in. Also want to thank all of the audio people who did a fabulous job along with everybody else. And we'd like, if I may, to dedicate this program to your son, Mrs. Banks. We'll remember him. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Special presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Winner of the Academy Award for Best Picture, now with never-before-seen footage. It's the world television premiere of Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves, Sunday at 8, 7 Central.